we're always talking about events, right? So it's cool that we have an expert. Keith McLane from KLM Auctions is here, everybody. Thanks so much, Keith, for coming. I appreciate you, brother. So,
it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we could have spoken about 100 different topics, but we chose the 3 pillars of pre-event prep. So and that could lead us down a couple of really, really cool rabbit holes, as a matter of fact. But hey, listen, everybody, even if it doesn't have to do with pre-event or night of, do us a favor. Ask any question you like. We have Keith for an hour, and we have you all for an hour as well. So feel free to ask any question that you like, and we'll get cranking. But also a friendly reminder, stay till the end and win. We're going to give away a really cool prize that you can use at your next event. That includes a one-on-one coaching call with our co-founder, Jason Ledlow, a brilliant fundraiser, as you all probably know. And so we'll give that away at the very, very end. And Sandy will give you cues on how you can get involved in that drawing that we'll do. But yeah, hey, Keith, thanks so much for coming. Appreciate you. If you take a second, tell the folks, if they haven't met you before or seen any of your work, what you're doing and what you've been doing for, over a decade, of course. So yeah.
About 3 decades last November, if you keep
nice. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So we are KLM Auctions. We are California and actually the West Coast's largest provider of pre-auction consulting services and professional benefit auctioneers, as far as I can tell. We did about 280 events last year. It's myself. I have 11 auctioneers who work exclusively for my company. And, I have a weird business, especially, across the country, but especially in Northern California. It's very Saturday focused. So we kind of need an army of people 20 nights a year, 12 Saturdays in the spring and 8 Saturdays in the fall, which is why I have such a big team. And, but it works out really well. My folks have now been with me 10, 12, even 15 years. So it's a really, I'm going to argue the most experienced team out there on the West Coast anyway. And, but we do events, mostly California, Northern Nevada, Hawaii, and your Western states. But we do events across the country as well. And it's, I feel really lucky that I get to do this. So it's been 30 years. Just a little bit of background, I guess. I was in the real estate auction business, which is how I learned how to do this. So a lot of people in this group are in this organization. They did their kids' schools auction and their wife told them they're great. And, then they started doing auctions, which is fine.
Yeah.
But the others of us, actually come from the real estate side like me, or the car side or the estate side, which I think brings in some unique qualifications just in primarily learning how to auction when you have to get it up to a price or you don't get to sell it. I just think that's good training. And so that's I come from the real estate auction side. I worked for 6 years for the company that became auction.com. Okay. So that's how I kind of got involved with this. And then was doing real estate auctions for a long time. And then, charities on the side. And then it kind of went the other way. And then since 2010, this is all that I've been doing is fundraising events.
So cool, man. That's awesome. Good story. I love it. And not stopping anytime soon because, I still feel like just kind of like, we've been in the space 10 years. I've been in the space for 10 years and it still feels, I had this conversation like a revolving door. It still feels very, very new in a great way. And we can all learn from each other. And this is obviously another great opportunity for everybody just to, share this info. I love it. We're going to talk about, once again, pre-event prep, messaging, getting folks prepped to give. We're going to talk about, gifts and things like that and matching this and all these pre-committed dollars and things like that. We're going to go to a cool rabbit hole. Once again, another nudge to everybody. Questions, please, for Keith and for us throughout the hour that we're here. So I want to get going. Keith, not to go like negative or anything like that, but Sandy had a really good question to start off with. What is the biggest mistake when it comes to like pre-event messaging about like impact and things that you see organizations, like something that folks that are listening can avoid, and we can layer into like the best that you've seen and how you're consulting, how your team's consulting folks. But some common mistakes that you see folks make when it comes to messaging and impact.
Sure. Happy to talk about that. I think number one is not telling people that you're a fundraiser, right? There's a lot of folks who get out and they have we have a great party and it's our 50th anniversary and we're doing this. There's going to be this band and we're doing all these fun things. And they neglect to, emphasize that it's a fundraiser. So people show up and they're like, sweet, this is going to be fun, particularly if they're not the board member or whatever, but say they got invited to a table, they're somebody's with the table. I always say, if your people show up and they don't know you're a fundraiser or they haven't embraced that or they haven't been, either directly or indirectly messaged to that there's a fundraiser and by being here, we expect you to give some money. That's not their fault. That's your fault. I remember back, gosh, it might have been 20 years ago. I got invited to some breakfast thing, and I was in this business. I've been in this business since 1995. So this is probably early 2000s. And I got invited to a breakfast thing. And I was probably only doing 10, 15, 20 events a year back then. But I got invited to a breakfast, and it was just like, hey, we're doing this breakfast, whatever. And somehow, even though I'm in the business, it didn't connect with me. It's a fundraiser. And I remember my knee-jerk reaction I got there when they asked for money was, oh, crap, I didn't know this was a fund. They're going to ask me for money. And, on the one hand, I felt kind of stupid because, I'm in this business. But on the other hand, the invitation, nowhere did it say that. My buddy invited me. He didn't tell me at all that that's what this was. You don't want to surprise people with that, hey, by the way, we're going to ask you for money, right? I mean, the goal of this is to double dip. If somebody's, a guest of somebody or they're a corporate invite or something, that's great. Their board member or their company gave them money. But the whole point is they want you to give money as well. And if you don't tell people that, both in your messaging, what you call the event, call it a gala and fundraiser or something versus a dance party or, whatever, and then in all your messaging that's going out to people, you have to let them know this is a fundraiser. Set your expectations, right? They're not mind readers. And so if they're not aware of that, that's not their fault. That's your fault.
Yeah. I mean, does it, in your experience, does it bleed into folks just like, we're afraid to ask? Do you think it's that?
Yeah.
Too,
yeah. I mean, most people, now I think most people are weirdos because I love asking for money. But
you're good at it.
Most people don't like asking people for money, right? I mean, it's kind of a weird, hey, can you come to my, it's a lot more fun to ask your friend, hey, I bought a table at this event. Can you, do you want to come and we'll party together? That's a lot more fun than, hey, leading with the mission. I'm part of this group. I've been a part of them with them for a long time. Here's what we do. Here's our mission. Here's the good work we're doing. I've got this fundraiser coming up and I'm looking to fill a table with folks who might, consider making a donation. Do you think you fit into that? Ask that way. And then you give them an easy out, right? If they don't want to give you money, they can say, hey, I'm booked. I got my kid's soccer tournament, and that's fine. Like if they don't want to, that's fine. But you got to set it up. When you ask them to come, you've got to set it up that, hey, the point of this is a fundraiser, and we're hoping that if you come, you'll consider making a donation. Most people in that case will be like, okay, I get what this is. And then they'll either come or they won't, and that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you consulting, you and your team, are you consulting folks to like maybe add like, I don't know, like a triumvirate of things, bullet of things, maybe one big thing, like we're really going to raise money for this. Do you work with folks on trying to find like one thing that they might be, once again, it could tie into the fund a need specifically or what have you, because you're really funding that need night of. But I mean, are you nudging folks to like grab something or show folks what we have done and what we're looking to do, that kind of stuff when it comes to the messaging pre-event and what have you? Are you nudging them to like grab something really tangible? Not like we're just gonna have like a dance party, but like, no, this is what we're raising money for, to send these kids to camp, or something along those lines. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. So we're very focused. We deal with the clients. I have a lot of conversations with boards, with, folks who are going to be procuring items and B, for the auction, B, inviting their friends. And so I have a lot of these conversations. And absolutely, I mean, the key is you got to be mission focused, right? I mean, and that's what it comes down to. It's not about me. It's not even about the people in the organization per se. It's about the mission. And I think, if you can include a story with that, like, hey, let me tell you about, and obviously we do this at the event, but even beforehand, maybe include a story. Let me tell you about Jonathan. He had this problem, but then he came in touch with our organization. Now he's doing this, trying to get people to feel something before, as well as obviously during the event, I think can be important. I think, I think the number one thing is just people have to be, understand why they're there. And if you can kind of paint a picture for them. Yeah. And the key is you got to do it quickly though, because most people don't read emails, or they'll, you get the headline and 1-2 sentences on to the next, so you send a big bulky thing, or you got to click a link and go somewhere else, and it's no good. Right. So we're always trying to find the balance of, what's actually going to work, and how do you make the point you're trying to make in a very, very short amount of time to get people fired up.
Yeah, it segues really, really nice. I've been wanting to ask you this question. It's like fundraising is not getting easier. There are way more opportunities and way more resources and way more tools and way more education and things like that available to fundraisers. Thankful for that. It's not getting any easier. And I know I know once again, for like dev teams and event teams out there, you got to do it all. You got to text, pick up the phone, email, video, imagery, all the above. And it would be really cool if there was consistency with that message night of, right? That ends night of and then continues post, of course, right? But what is like some feedback now that it's 2026, Keith? Like what's your, like you said, you got to grab people's attention with that headline. It's got to be consistent throughout, 6 months out, 3 months out, night of, all that. What's the best, once again, like, I mean, you don't have to choose just one, but give some examples of like some really cool messaging, whether that is an email, whether you're telling folks, pick up the damn phone, text your biggest donors, all those things. Like tell folks, what you see as far as the best way to penetrate with that message, I guess.
Sure. Well, picking up the phone, there's no substitute for that, right? And one of the big things I tell my clients is, probably the best half hour. No one's ever asked me this question, but if someone says, "Hey, Keith, I've got a half an hour. My event's this Saturday. I've got a half an hour of spare time between now and then. What's my best use of time with that half hour?" I'm still waiting to get that question. No one's ever asked, but if they did, and I've told the story before. What I tell them is, I would make 6 5-minute phone calls. Go to your whales, your people who you think might have the most capacity, or look at your last year, who was there last year, but is not there this year. Call them up. Jim, great to see you. Hey, we noticed you and Martha weren't going to be, weren't on the list for our event this Saturday. You were so helpful last year. Are you going to be able to make it? So one, try to get them there. And then the other piece of it is, so that's what you do to try to get your few people who maybe gave you money there. If you haven't heard from them, we're there last year but aren't coming this year. Give them a phone call, because most people aren't getting that, right? They've got your emails. Maybe they're not getting your emails, or maybe they'll tell you, "Oh, sorry, we're out of town this year," and that's fine. But maybe they'll tell you, "Oh, wait, what night is it?" And you're thinking, "What do you mean, what night is it? I've sent you a gazillion emails and I texted you all this," but you know what I mean? But they're not thinking about it. So I think a phone call is super important, A, to get them there, but B, to get them to try to, get a pre-committed donation, right? And that's a big focus of what we do is, the more money and the more effort you put in before, the better your event's going to be, right? And so big thing, I'm not telling anybody probably on this call anything they don't know, but you're obviously trying to get pre-committed donations, right? We don't call it shills or plants. Those are bad words in our industry. We call them pre-committed money, right? Yeah. Just like we don't say rich people, we say people with capacity. So you're calling your people with capacity to try to get pre-committed donations. And that phone call should go something like this: "Jim, hey, we're so glad to see that you and Martha are going to be attending our event on Saturday. Can't wait to have you there. You were so helpful last year. Your $2,500 donation, as helped do X, Y, and Z. This year, we have an even bigger goal because, last year we were able to help 200 kids. This year, we're trying to help 300. We were hoping you would consider," and these are my 4 favorite words here, "we're hoping you would consider taking on the role of being an honorary donor and consider making a leadership gift this year, either this year or again this year." Those are my 4 favorite words: honorary donor and leadership gift. Because what you're doing is you're just giving a fancy name to something that, I don't say it doesn't mean anything, but you're not making any commitment there. You're just trying to let them know that, hey, you're in a category with us. We have tremendous respect for you if you'll consider being an honor. If you make a pre-commitment with us right now, you'll be an honorary donor. So people go, "Oh, great, I'm an honorary donor," and consider making a leadership gift. Everybody wants to be the honorary donor making the leadership gift, right? Yep. And it does a couple things. The first thing it does is, they'll say one of 2 things. They'll never say no. 0 times will they say no. 10% of the time they'll say, "Sure, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, you can count on me. I'll raise my paddle at $5,000 or whatever." 90% of the time they'll say, "Well, let me think about it. Let me talk to my spouse. Let me think about it. Let me get back to you, whatever." So then, day or 2 goes by, you can call them back up. Say you never even get in contact with them. Best case, you get them to yes before your event. But worst case, what you've done now is you've let them know that, hey, and here's the other thing I like to say, by the way, to introduce myself. Yeah. We'd love you to consider being an honorary donor. You don't say, "We would love you to consider being an honorary donor making a leadership gift." You say, "The committee was wondering if you'd consider being taking on the role of being an honorary donor making a leadership gift." What does that do? Then it's not me asking you. One, it's easier to ask. It's not me, it's this committee. But what that does is it puts in their head that there's this cabal of people who they don't even know who sort of expect them or really hoping they'll give at the event. So when they're sitting there at the event, say they haven't committed yet, they're thinking, "Oh, great, I got people thinking about, I'm not anonymous here, right? There's this committee, whoever that is, wondering if I'm going to make a donation. I don't want to let the committee down." So there you go, $5,000. So best case, you get a pre-commit. But even if you don't get a pre-commit, you have them thinking, "Okay, I'm not anonymous, and if I don't give, it will be noticed." And in my mind, that's why auctions are so powerful, because we always say auctions are the right amount of pressure and they're the right amount of reward. They're not such crushing pressure where if you don't give, you're embarrassed and humiliated. You know, I'd never go to somebody in a room and say, how come you're not donating? You can afford, like, you know, you never do something like that. But it's sort of, but instead they see everybody at their table donating and they say, all right, I guess I don't want to be the only guy not donating. All right, I'll donate. Again, it's just the perfect amount of pressure. And same thing, the right amount of reward. I don't need my name sung from the high tops, from the mountaintops. I mean, I don't need, you know, a trophy, but it is nice. Who wants to donate $2,500? I raise my paddle. At least everybody at my table is looking at, oh, wow, Keith's successful and he's generous, right? Which is what you want to be. Again, it's the right amount of reward. So it's sort of, you know, getting these pre-committed donations and asking in the right way sort of plays in very nicely to that whole, you know, creating the right amount of reward and the right amount of quote unquote pressure at an event.
I love it. Oh my gosh. There's a lot to unpack there. I heard you say, I think, I'm not putting words in your mouth. We say the most powerful fundraising tool that you have is your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The best use of your time.
100%. Yeah. And the talk feature, not the text feature or the email feature.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So much goodness there. I also heard you say something early on when you're talking about picking up the phone. The best use of someone's time, if they have an extra half hour, is to call 6 people with capacity for 5 minutes each. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, if you can call 20, then good for you. Or if you have, you know, some committees, I'll say, you know, they're like, oh, we don't like making calls. I'm like, look, you've got 5 people there. Can you each make 2 phone calls? Like, is that a huge, can you each make 1 phone call? Like, is that a huge ask, right? I mean,
yeah,
you know, if you split it up too, and some people have the capacity to do that, some don't, but if you can, it's not a huge ask, right? I mean, that's a pretty, can you call 2 or 3 people, you know, and if you're the director, you know, if you're a parent in the PTA or the educational foundation or whatever, maybe you each call 2 or 3 people. If you're a director of development, call 5 people, call 7 people, call 10 people. You know, it's not this, I'm not trying to bury you with work, but I think those could be very, very important phone calls. Hopefully you'll get a few who go, oh yeah, you know, we forgot. Yeah. Okay. What day is it? Oh, it's Saturday. Yeah, we can make it. Hey, Jenny, you want to go to this? Okay, good. Let's do it. All right. Yeah. Put us down. We'll be there. Boom. Totally. And those are probably people giving you a pass because that's why you're calling them. That's money. That's found money right there.
Totally. You know, you mentioned something that I'm super cued in on too, Keith. As a rule, differentiation is stronger than competition. There are other organizations calling these folks as well. Maybe, let's just presuppose there's other folks asking them for money. Whether they're picking up the phone and being clever enough to actually have those personal conversations is a whole nother ball of wax. Differentiation is stronger than competition. I heard you also say that most people aren't doing that.
That you said a lot of people are doing that. I doubt it. I strongly doubt it. I
don't think a lot of people are doing that.
You know, everybody has their list of major donors. They're probably calling them. But as far as your, you know, rank and file people at an auction who, you know, give you $5,000, $2,500, $1,000, you know, you might not have time to call all your $100 donations. I mean, if you do, then great. But, you know, say you even call your $1,000 and up or your $2,500 and up or your $5,000 and up. I'll bet most of them aren't getting a phone call, and they're sure not getting a phone call saying, hey, we want you to be, you know, consider being an honorary donor and consider making a leadership gift. I mean, that sounds like, sweet, I'm important. You know, I'm going to be the honorary donor making leadership gift. And by the way, hopefully you get, you know, if you can get 2 or 3 people saying yes, so that's now 2 or 3 people raising their paddle at 5,000. They're never going to be like, hey, wait, I thought I was the honorary donor. They'd be like, sweet, more my giving begets bidding. It's more people giving to this organization that I obviously care about. I wouldn't be here. Great. Like, you know, you should have as many of those people as you can find.
Totally. Yeah. And of course, I mean, what if someone gave $1,000 and they've only been to your event one time?
Magic.
I mean, you have no
and
idea.
Now they're in your fold, and now you can obviously bug them for more, you know, and then maybe next year they'll bring a friend who might give you money. I mean, it's just, you know, it just compounds, right? It's a ladder. You're trying to ladder people up.
For the record, I don't think a lot of people are doing that. I think it's a travesty. I think it's a massive mistake that folks don't pick up the phone. We created this thing, Keith, and I want to ask this question. Sandy put up a poll question. It was awesome about how far in advance folks ask and get pre-committed gifts. I want to talk to you about, you know, how you consult the organizations that you work with about that, and how far in advance you tell them basically to pick up the phone. Now, our thing that we created is like, hey, can you make 3 calls a day? You know, it's like, okay. Great. And let's just say, like, Keith, for instance, just like a quick answer. How far in advance do you consult folks to start getting these pre-committed gifts?
Yeah, there's no time that's a bad time, right? I mean, as soon as you've announced your event and have it going out, I mean, the sooner you have it, the better you'll sleep leading up to your event, right? Because the 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks leading up to your event, you're probably working 16 hours a day and not getting any sleep anyway. So, you could stress yourself out and put it to the last minute, like kind of like writing your paper in college, right? Or you can just go ahead and do it. So that said, fortunately or unfortunately, what we've seen is coming out of COVID, people are committing, not everybody, but a lot of people are committing to events later,
Yeah.
which is a pain in the butt for people like you and me and most people I'm sure on this call, but that's just the reality. So a lot of people do it, a week out, even 2 weeks out. I mean, heck, even the week of is great. I mean, I always tell people you need to be pushing till auction day, right? Both in getting registrations, getting people to show up, encouraging them, hey, we're counting on you to be there. Hey, we've noticed, we were there last year, you weren't there this year. Push till the very end, because on the bad news, we're seeing people kind of sign up and register later. But the good news is attendance we're seeing is just as good as it's ever been, right? And people eventually they come around, they just commit later. So I guess my short answer is there's never a bad time. I would yes to all. Be asking for these donations early, 6 months out, 3 months out, a month out, a week out. Yes to all.
Yeah, good. No, love that. And then yeah, I mean, and how do you take? I mean, I love what you said about your 4 favorite words. We're gonna keep hitting that. I think that's awesome for the folks to take that. Honorary donor leadership gift.
Yeah, would you consider being an honorary donor at our event and making a leadership gift in the amount of blah blah blah? Yep.
And we had a question about taking the pressure out, and it seems like that vernacular does a really nice job of that.
Yeah.
Like, and we're also big on inviting as opposed to asking. As far as framework, how do you once again, like, we'll just talk about that when you pick up the phone, honorary donor leadership gift, other tools that folks can take away about taking the pressure off.
Yeah, I love that. I love that inviting instead of asking. And again, like just repeat something I said, the committee was talking and we were hoping instead of I was hoping, because, then it's like, one, I think a lot of people have an easier time making that ask, because then I'm not asking for me. I'm not, whatever, it's the committee. I'm just on behalf of the committee. So I think it's easier. It's an easier ask to make. And then, like I said, it sort of plants that seed that, okay, they're like, if I don't raise my paddle, I'm not anonymous, right? I'm people are going to notice.
I love putting the onus on the committee. Do you ever advise folks put the onus on the board when they're having those conversations?
Yeah, the board, the committee, whatever it is. Cool. Yeah, whoever the group is that's making the ask, it's going to be the board or the committee or whoever it is. Absolutely, yeah.
When you're working, of course, perfect world kind of scenarios, but we'll frame the question where it has real life, real world application. What is a realistic goal? And of course we can look back at data from previous events and things like that, presupposing it's not someone's first event, but what's a realistic goal for pre-committed dollars?
It's so event to event. I said, we'll do 280 events this year. I do about 70 of them myself, and my team will do a little over 200 events this year, last year, and probably about the same, maybe a little more this year. And it's just so event to event. You've got the high school baseball team crab feed that's hoping to make 30 grand.
Right.
That's just a different beast, right? I mean, if you can get one person pre-committed at 500, you're like, sweet,
Yeah.
And then we do our share of, multi-million-dollar events as well. And that's, you're looking for the 100,000, even 250,000, sometimes even more pre-commits, right? And that's, long-term, kind of ongoing and stuff. So there's really no magic number. What I always say, everybody always says what they want is more, right? I mean, nobody, it's professionally humiliating to not make more than they did last year, right? And so, and I always say, look, my job is to make you, the executive director, the director of development, the auction co-chair for the school, whatever. My job is to A, have a super fun night, and B, have you make more money than last year. If you do those two things, you get to keep your job and I get invited back next year. I get to keep my job. So that's kind of what we're going for here. So, I'm still waiting for the client to call and say, no, we're happy making less than we did last year. I'm still waiting for that phone call. In 30 years, I don't think I've got it. So
just same phone call about, hey, Keith, should I pick up the phone?
It's the same phone call like, hey, Keith, we have unlimited money for auctioneer fees. Whatever you want to charge, we're happy to pay. I've done, thousands and thousands of phone calls. I never received that one. I'm still waiting for it.
That's awesome. I love it. we got a question. I got a question coming on my phone and a question that came in the chat.
Great.
Hey, from Kelly, and we're calling outside the lines now, Keith, but we got you for another half hour. So, and everybody, as you can tell, this is going really, really well. Ask questions. We got Keith for another half hour. We're going to give you ways that you can ask Keith questions off air as well. And so Sandy will put that in the chat feature. We'll put that in the recording email as well, everybody, just so you can reach out to Keith anytime you want. Sorry to put your business in the street, brother, but that's part of coming on.
All good. It's all good.
Okay.
Thank
Hey,
you.
from Kelly. Kelly, thanks so much. Kelly, if you're here, say hello. But this is a pre-submitted question. We have done a fund in need for years, and it's really dragging down the program, with most of the larger gifts being seeds versus new donors. This is an interesting question, Keith. So we are looking for ways to not lose the revenue, but also not drag down the program with an awkward paddle raise. That's an interesting question.
Yeah, that is. Thank you, Sandy, for that question. As you know, what I always say to people is, if the fund needs dragging, maybe it's your auctioneer. Maybe they're just not, dynamic or exciting enough. Again, I don't want to disparage. I have no idea who your auctioneer is. I don't even know what event we're talking about here. So
Sure.
I would never want to disparage anybody. But, maybe need some fresh blood in there. I mean,
Totally.
sometimes people say, come back and they say, oh, we do the same thing every year. And there's a reason people do it this way. I've had too many events, not too many, but a number of events where we're going crazy. We're doing something new and different and being all fun. That's great, but it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it does, but maybe it doesn't. Part of what I do is try to eliminate your risk, right? Obviously, you want the fundraising to go really well, but what we really want is for it not to go badly or not to be worse.
Yeah.
And so, because we've tried other things. The fund in need just works. It's like I said, it's the right amount of pressure. It's the right amount of reward. We've tried doing other things, where instead of starting high and going low like we do, we've gone low and go high, like a last man standing format. Our experience has been it doesn't work as well. In a few instances, perhaps, but for the most part, doesn't work as well. We've tried the, fill out the envelope, the bid card on the table and put it in an envelope. Again, I have a few events where that makes sense, but for the most part, it's not going to work as well. Again, it doesn't have the right amount of pressure, the right amount of reward. Most events, we don't like the online bidding for the fund in need. Now, if you have, some weird things or, a giant room and you don't have time to do the fund in need, I can see why there are places and times when you do want to do the fund in need instead of having to raise the paddle, have people bid on their phones. Places and times, particularly very, very large events, it can make sense. But for the most part, there's a reason why we do it this way. It just works better. And more importantly, it drastically reduces your risk of not doing well, of having it go badly. So, I guess the main thing I think would be try another, maybe you need to mix it up on the auctioneer front.
Totally. Okay, cool. Another great. Hey, Sarah, if you're here, please say hello. Huge fan of Sarah's. Hey, Keith, another question. It looks like a question about the fund in need. From Sarah. We are doing a fund in need activity wall for our event this year, along with several other activations and client engagement opportunities. Sounds awesome. And we've done a raise the paddle auction break previously. Would you recommend doing both or putting all eggs in one basket? We are considering having the wall up during the strolling dinner and then having our auctioneer call out the remaining needs during the sit-down portion of the program as a segue to raise the paddle. Does that seem reasonable?
So, I don't disagree with that. People like to give in different ways. We always say most events, there's really 6 ways that most events make money. Obviously, before your event, it's ticket sales and sponsorship. And then at your event, that's before your event. And then at your event, it's obviously silent auction, raffles or games, live auction, and fund in need, right? So kind of the 6 ways that events make money. And, the broadest of those is game and raffle ideas. So I'm kind of a fan. We always say your silent auction people are your Costco shoppers, right? They like to, they're probably looking for a deal. My understanding is the average silent auction package probably sells for, less than 60 to 70% of value, sometimes more. And if you have gift cards or whatever, they'll get around value, and trips might do better, but a lot of things do worse. You're probably averaging 60, 70% of value. That's people who kind of want a deal, right? And if you can do better, great, but that's probably the average. Live auctions for your hot shots, right? People who want to be seen, who A, have the capacity, and B, kind of want to be seen. That's your hot shots. Raffles are your gamblers, right? People who kind of want to, take the risk. And then fund in need is for your pure at hearts, right? I don't, maybe I want a tax write-off, but I don't want anything for it. I just want to donate to the group. I just want to donate to the organization and to the mission.
Yeah.
So seeing as people like to give in different ways, I'm always up to trying it, especially if you've done it in the past and it works well. I think doing something like you described there, before and leading into the fund in need, I'd love to explore that deeper. If you're a client, I'd explore that deeper, but I think I'm fine with it. Let's try it and see if it works. So I don't see any downside of it. I don't see any downside. So,
Sarah, Keith's email's right there if you want to continue the conversation with him. Sarah's awesome. We've known Sarah for a long time, Keith, and she's amazing and a great fundraiser. So thanks for that great question. Yeah, absolutely. Sandy, any other questions that were pre-submitted or a call for questions before we kind of go down the timeline a little bit of what we had queued up? We
I'll
talked
say
about
one more thing
no,
as
please, Keith.
Sandy's kind of
Yeah,
looking at
yeah,
that on the raffle idea. You know, a lot of it's cultural too. You know, if you want to do kind of the wall, you know, some kind of bidding wall or something like that, a lot of it's cultural. You know, I have a Rotary group that we work with. They do 6 raffles, and I was like, "You're doing 6 raffles? Like that's," and they all do great. They're just a raffle loving bunch. Like, you know,
yeah,
what do you say? That other groups like, nah, it's not really our community, whatever. So I think, you know, on that, I'm always, you know, looking to you know, kind of explore your community, and I feel with my clients, you know, obviously hopefully I know a few things that I'm talking about, but I don't know you, especially a first time client, I might not know your community as well. So I'd say kind of trust your judgment on that. If you think your people would like this, then let's give it a try.
yeah. You said cultural. Every event has its own atmosphere, its own uniqueness, right? And there
Yeah,
are we work with a lot of conservation organizations,
we do
amazing
too. Yeah,
fundraisers, and once again, they'll have 6 raffles.
yeah,
And you'll be like, "What in the world? I've never seen it," and they'll crush it, right? So
right,
it's like you said, understanding your
right.
audience, you know. And then and it sounds like you're saying with you know, I'm not presupposing, but it's like adding a new element, you know, trying a new element this year, getting back to the pre-event messaging. I don't like surprises. I don't think donors like surprises. Donors are consumers at the end of the day, unless it's like a oh my gosh deal. I don't think donors like surprise. So when you're adding things like this, do you recommend including or teasing this in the messaging pre-event?
Yes and no. You know,
Okay, talk to me about
I
that.
think
Yeah,
you know it depends. I'm kind of I think surprises around the margin, little surprises can be
yeah,
fun if it's not,
totally.
you know, like a raffle or something. They don't need to know about every raffle
Or
that's
like a
coming up.
glass of champagne when I show up that I've never gotten from you
Yeah,
before.
right.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
exactly. Or like a little
yeah,
raffle, you know, my whole thing is, you know, the main, like, let's be honest, most of our events, the reality is the main fund driver is sponsorships, right? I mean, maybe not schools as much, but for non-schools, you know, the dirty little secret, which is probably neither dirty nor little nor a secret,
yeah.
is, you know, sponsorships are a lot of, you know, if I've got $1 million event, we're very rarely making $1 million in the room. I mean, we have, but you know, most events just aren't that big. It's because they've got $750,000 or $500,000 in sponsorships, right? So sponsorships are number one for particularly for non-schools. And then number 2 is usually the fund to need. That's you know, a number of years back that's surpassed for most of our events. Some events the auction does better than the fund to need, but most of the time the fund to need is making even more than the live auction. And so you kind of don't want to monkey with that too hard, has been my experience. You know, we can try a few little things, but like, I know it works. I've done 1,400 events personally. My company's done 3,100 events. You know it works, and there's risk of doing something too different on the big thing that's going to make the majority of your money. Now, if you want to try something, hey, we got this new raffle, we want to try this, you know, game before we start the live auction. I'm all about new and kind of keeping it fresh with the little things.
Yeah.
You know, because they're good. They're going to be somewhere from okay to spectacular, right? And that's fine. Whereas your fund and need, you need that to be somewhere from great to spectacular, right? Because
Right.
that's the majority. That's the big way raising money.
You said something about sponsorships, and I wanted to get at you about boards, about the boards being the greatest asset, or a lot of folks will be like, well, they're my greatest liability.
Yeah.
Right. Sandy just put up a poll question about boards as well, so feel free to answer that if you don't mind, folks. But Keith, you just said sponsorships. I seem to think, or I think that boards, committees, you know, synonymous. But we'll stick with boards. Can be your greatest asset when it comes to finding folks in their phone that they know, using the most powerful fundraising tool they have. And
That's the hope.
right? Okay. So they can be your greatest supporters. What separates that you've seen with the organizations that engage their board properly versus the ones that go, hey man, I can't get my board to help me. I can't.
Sure. We unfortunately there's a lot of clients aren't, you know, are diplomatic but not that thrilled with their boards, right? There's, you know, again, you hear this once in a while, but you don't hear that much. Our board's great. They're bringing a bunch of wealthy folks to our event. They do everything they say, and I don't even have to bug them. Like, you know, that's la la land in a lot for most organizations, right? I mean, most organizations, the board's mixed. You have a few board members who are gung ho, really at it, procuring live auction packages, getting their friends with capacity to come to the event. And then other boards are not. You know, I think a lot of it just comes down to setting board expectations, right? I mean, I think a lot of groups are legacy. They've been doing this a long time. People on the board are, you know, they're friends or they're nice people or whatever, but they don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just your choice. You've got to decide, is this a board for friendship, or is this a board we're trying to get, you know, take this event to the next level and, really drive, more revenue to support our mission. And so I think every group has to, figure out what you are and sometimes make the hard decisions. Sometimes it comes
Yeah.
down to,
Yeah.
maybe we need to excuse this board member, ask them if, say you got to help out more, or we're going to have to ask you to leave, or, and
Yeah.
set requirements. I think a lot of groups, kind of never had board requirements. I think a lot of groups now are like, hey, board member, you've got to either donate or bring in this amount of money. You've got to spend this amount of hours. You got to bring in at least one live auction pack, whatever, or maybe you have different classes of boards. Some board members are more working board members that like, well, they don't have that capacity, but they're really mission focused and they really help. And that's fine. My point is your board members in theory anyway, should be doing something for you. And if you have board members that aren't, maybe it's time to get them to relinquish their seat.
And I see a lot, not letting board members or just boards in general off the hook. I see a lot of issues with folks not giving them the right tools and what they need to say.
100%.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And we do a lot of that. We work with boards, a lot of it is, again, the whole, honorary donor leadership gift thing, right? Here's how to ask, because, I'm a weirdo. I realize I like asking people for money, which is maybe
very rare, man. It's very
rare. Opposite. I don't know. Maybe that's something weird, but most people don't. Most people hate asking. In fact, that might be some people least favorite thing to do is ask people for money. Right. And so, and I get it, that makes sense. But especially like schools where it's not professional fundraisers, hopefully, if you're a director of development, you probably do at some level like asking people for money, and but I can give those folks some tools as well. Although again, I never presume I know how to do their job. But I think we can give a lot of board members, they're not professional fundraisers, right? And so I think they can use the help. I think a lot of 40% of our clients are schools, PTAs, and educational foundations. A lot of those folks, are they're sometimes dads, but mostly moms working with a school, trying to do a great thing, trying to help their school, make more money so they can improve the playground or have technology or scholarships if it's a private school, And so I think I think we can give people a lot of techniques and like you said, verbiage, scripts, even ways to ask that really help people.
Exactly. Give them the tools.
Yeah.
It's like, this is the script. And I'm a big fan of, I'm getting a little opinionated here. I'm a big fan of, if you give them a script and it's 1,000 words, cut it in half.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm talking 5 bullet points. I mean, totally. It's a real quick. If it's too long, and you can't be like, "Hi, Mr. Johnson, how are you today? We thank you so much for taking." I'm a bigger fan of kind of bullet points. Just little schmoozing, whatever, and then hey, here's what we're looking for. We the committee's identified you as one of the folks we think might be inspired to consider being an honorary donor and making a leadership gift to our organization. I mean, I think that the feedback I've gotten is that works really, really well for folks.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if you have that, what's scary in life, right? What stresses you out? What's scary in life is the unknown, is things you don't know, right? The second you have a plan, all the fear, all the anxiety goes away because you have something you can execute on, right? Everything you're stressed about in your life, it's because you don't know what's going to happen. You feel helpless, right? But the second you have a plan, the stress goes away.
And also, brevity of message wins. Having a plan, like you said, the roadmap, playbook, whatever you want to use to describe, and then you don't have to do it alone. Get in the room and do it with somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, there's strength in numbers. There's power in that. And you can get a lot of juice and a lot of energy out of that too. I think that kind of stuff's really, really fun. Hey, Betsy, thanks so much for the question. Appreciate you. Betsy, if you haven't put your LinkedIn profile up already, please do so. Hey, I got a question here. Keith, what are the best ways to use text messaging prior to the fundraising event to prep the guests to engage in the silent auction and paddle race? Great question.
Perfect. Yeah. I think most of your online auction management software programs have that built in now. And so, there's a lot of stuff. Every problem you have, I can solve with time or money, right? And that's a good one that I think you want to use money to solve it versus time, because if you're trying to get those sent out, it can be I would just, honestly, I'd lean on, there's now dozens of great companies. We work with most or probably all of them, that have your auction management software. I think, again, if you're the high school baseball team crab feed, nothing against that, but you're making 15 to 30 grand. You might not be able to afford that. Frankly, you might not be able to afford my company, and that's all fine. But the second you have, if you have a 6-figure event, of $75, $100, $150,000 event, and I mean all in, not even just in the room, but sponsorships in all 6 of those ways. You have a 6-figure event. you can either spend this much time or really this much money to get the same result. And I'm always saying, just like you want to hire a professional benefit auctioneer because knowing how to ask for money is a separate skill. People have already invented the wheel many times with this auction management software. So
Mhm.
honestly, I think you just plug that in, and almost as far as I know, just about all of them have that. Hey, get people on this text diet, right? And this
Yep.
leads up to your
Yep.
event, and you're set. That's what I would do.
Great
And
question. And
then worry about something else.
the technology, I'm stealing it from some technologists that have been on the episode or on the pod and the webinars, both friends of HGAs and friends of Hey Nonprofits. The technology is there to free you up so you can focus on the people.
Leverage it. Right.
Yeah,
You got to get
yeah.
I think, nonprofits, and there's been people, I forget the guy's name, but he's, done a TED talk on it, and his name will come back to me in a second. But, talk about how nonprofits are so afraid of spending money, and, your best organizations in the world, in everything, in the private sector, the public sector, the nonprofit sector, you gotta be smart, obviously, and you gotta be accountable. But auction management software really is a small investment relative you make that it's going to just save hundreds of labor hours.
Yeah.
And especially it leverages future years too, because once you learn how to use it, then it's just even easier future years. You can repeat things, it send all your messaging before the auction, during the auction, after the auction.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
just leverage that.
Keith brought up 2 points. I have to double click on both of them. One is we found that if you add software and all of the data that you can pull from it, it's going to add 30% to your event year over year minimum.
Probably true.
Also, as Keith mentioned, having a professional benefit auctioneer, massive point, of course, once again, because this is a science and a skill set that very few people have. Good for Keith and his team. There are more events and there are great fundraising auctioneers. But once again, you understand, we're so pro auctioneer and pro benefit auctioneer.
Thanks, Trevor. Well, just to add to that, one thing we always say is, you wouldn't have a chef that didn't know how to make good food. Like, we brought a volunteer chef who hasn't, he made food for a few people once or whatever, he hasn't done it, whatever. You wouldn't have a janky venue. You wouldn't have a DJ that doesn't really know much about music.
Right.
Or are you going to have an auctioneer that doesn't know how to do this, right? Some people think, it's just being good on stage. That's a part of it. But there's just an art and a science in knowing how to ask for money, right? Both in the live auction and the fund and need. And you want to keep it moving, but not too fast. Be fun and playful, but not grinding people. The worst thing you can have is an event where people are like, oh, God, sell it already. God, this guy's going on forever. Or the worst thing, somebody kicked me off at $1,000, sold $1,000. I didn't have a chance to bid, right? And it's just an impossible ask. Like, there's just the weatherman's just not going to know how to do that, or your board members just, hasn't done. It's like anything. It's the 10,000 hours, right? Just if you've done a lot, you kind of, you've had the training, and then you do it a lot. You kind of realize, oh, this doesn't work as well. I get a lot better result when I do this, and that's 50 events, 100 events. Like I said, all of my people have done now hundreds of events, and I've done over 1,000. Right? I've done 1,400 events personally. So hopefully you learn something.
Reps. And we're learning, and we're still learning and sharing. Betsy, hey, great follow-up. It is part of their software about the messaging, of course, great. And then are there best practices for when to send the text and what to say, Keith?
Yeah, again, I'd lean on the auction management software companies. They've kind of figured this stuff out.
Okay.
I think a lot of it is, I read these texts and I see they come in because I'm always on the software, and it's like, hey, now's the time to do this. Obviously you're trying to get people fired up for your live, fired up your fund and need. Usually the pre-auction texts are more, like you said, driving people to the fund and need. Excuse me, driving people to the sound auction. That's what I meant to say. Drive people to the sound auction. Hey, now's the time to bid. Again, I think your auction management software company will probably have, I know they do. They have a program laid out, and they've done the work on that to figure out, okay, we do it 3 messages, we don't get that much. We do 6 messages this space. They've done that work. So I would leverage them.
Agreed. Great point. Yeah. Great question as well, Betsy. And then once again, we can't say it enough. Tie it back to the mission, what you're doing. At
100%.
that event. Yeah. Good stuff. Hey, great question from Rosalind, who's dittoing Sandy's question about recognizing big donors. But shouldn't we ask for their permission to be recognized if they want to remain anonymous? That's a great follow-up, Rosalind. And the original question from Sandy: do you have any suggestions on ways to recognize donors at the event?
So that's
that have made leadership gifts, my friend.
No, that's a wonderful thing. That's a great point that I didn't add on here in my private consulting and stuff, we when folks are clients, by the way, when folks are clients of ours, unlimited pre-auction consulting, some clients are a couple phone calls, a couple emails, some clients are 12 phone calls with 250 emails. So
Right.
whatever
Right.
it takes, we're happy to do. That's for all of our clients. It's 100% of your pre-auction consulting conversations like this are included. But that's a really good point. In those conversations, you're right. Okay, so great. So now you've got somebody who's going to give you, 2,500, 5,000, 10,000, 25,000, 50,000, whatever they want with their opening bid, 100,000, whatever, depending on your event.
Yeah.
100%, you should ask them if they want to, if someone's going to give me a big chunk of money, they make the rules, right? Would you like to be recognized? Sometimes they want their name said. Sometimes they want the name of the foundation they're representing said. Sometimes they want to be anonymous. We can do any of this. It comes back to, gosh, probably, again, 20 years ago now, I was doing an event, and it was in Northern California. I won't say who, but he was probably the most famous director in the world. Let's just,
Oh, wow.
you can guess who that might be.
Yeah,
And he was
okay,
at the
cool.
event. And so everybody knew who he was, and everybody knew he was there. I called out, and he made like a $5,000 donation. It was a nice thing to do. 5,000 from it. I said his name. I got fired, right? Because apparently after the event, it was a great event, but after the event, he was so mad that the auctioneer said his name. He complained, and then of course he complained. So the organization's like, "You're out of there." So 20 years ago, we learned our lessons, right? I'm like,
Right.
and it's kind of funny in my mind because like everybody knows who this guy is, and everybody saw him at his paddle, but he was
Sounds funny.
mortified that his name was. So good lesson before you read somebody's name. And everybody's different, right? Some people want their name read. Some people want their name in lights. Look, if you want to give me a big donation, I'll do whatever you want me to do. But you absolutely should ask and see what they want. That's a great point, and we always do that for sure.
I love the piggybacking on that. I love the idea of recognizing people that are like plan givers, legacy givers with, I'm stealing it from our friend Chris Hensley, different colored paddles.
Yeah.
Some recognition button. It could be, I love, and I keep just having daydreams about the coolest thing that I think folks can do about adding to your next event would be a monthly giving campaign that's branded, where you give folks a bracelet, a blinky ring, a necklace and I'm talking about recognition still.
Sure.
But we talk about this all the time. It's like, there's FOMO. It's like, hey, how do they get that? Or maybe they bought a golden ticket, which also signs them up. This is my dream, by the way.
Yeah.
Buy a golden ticket, automatically signs you up for the monthly giving. At checkout, you can decide if you want to give the $100 a month or you want to give another amount before you leave. Amazing. Love this idea.
Two thoughts on
Go,
yeah.
please.
Two thoughts on all that. One, whatever you can do, to recognize people if they want to be recognized. For your big donors, a slide, give them a prize, give an award. Sometimes they want to speak. Sometimes they want to say, $25,000, number 145. But then here, so who is this on behalf of or something? Obviously that's prearranged beforehand. Give them the mic. They can say, "Hey, this is on behalf of my brother who died from leukemia 3 years ago." Whatever. Like if they wanted it, now you got to script that and make it cautious because you don't want them grabbing the mic. And I always hold the mic there, but I keep holding the mic so they don't. Let me tell you about my 26-point plan for solving this problem. You don't want to lose control of the event, but do they want to speak? Do they want a gift? Do they want to, have their name on a slide? I mean, there's different ways you can do it. I think it's pretty easy to ask. Like, how would you, thank you so much for pre-committing your $10,000 donation. Would you like to be recognized? Would you like us to mention your name? Would you like us to mention the name of your foundation, or your family trust or whatever? Would you like us to, how would you like, what do you think is appropriate? What would you like? And they'll tell you, right? And honestly, whatever they want, if they want, they want me to get down and do 25 push-ups for them, I'll do whatever you want me to do, right? I mean, if you're going to give me a big chunk of money, that's great. Yeah. Now, the second thing you brought up there is, let's see, you brought up
monthly giving, blinky
rings.
Monthly
giving. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
The challenge with monthly giving is you got to be really, really careful and really, really clear. We've tried that, especially recently, a couple times. The problem with the fundraising events is people are drinking and they're half paying attention most of the time. We do sober events, we do other things, but for the most part, people are drinking and they're half paying attention. We've had things where it's on the screen what we're doing, and the auction announces, okay, the last denomination, you're not donating once, you're committing to a monthly donation. So if you donate 100, that's $1,200 for the year. You can do too much talking, too difficult, right? I think, it's sort of like in the fund and need a lot. I differ from a lot of auctioneers here. A lot of auctioneers are like, $10,000 will buy you X, Y, and Z, and $5,000 will buy you Q, N, and P, and $2,500 will buy you Y, P, and L. Like, you don't you're paying attention. You don't even remember what the 3 letters I just read for $5,000. It's like you're and you're sober and you are paying attention, right? Imagine being an event, you're half talking to your friends. Yeah. I think it's more auctions are more momentum based. You don't want to get too bung. You don't want to make people think. You want to make them feel, right? I mean, early in your event, you want to make them think and understand what you're doing. But when you're asking for money, we're trying to make them feel something. And you don't do that by a bunch of stats and figures and breaking down each level where the money goes. I think having that written in your catalog's fine. Perhaps even having it on your slide is fine. But I'm not a big fan of auctioneers who, this level will buy these tricky things. Now, unless it's super simple, it costs $500 to send a kid to camp, period. So $1,000, you're sending 2 kids to camp. $2,500, you're sending 5 kids to camp. That I think can work because it's super simple. People get it. But unless it's that level of keep it simple, stupid, I think you don't want to overburden people with facts and knowledge and thoughts. You're trying to make them feel something. And I think that totally translates when you're trying to do something tricky like monthly giving, whatever. There's other ways to do that. Maybe you do your fundraising and then you bring it up afterwards for people who want to do it, but you don't want to. I've done it a couple times, and there's always people like, oh wait, I didn't realize I was giving you committing to a monthly. Like you're like, well, we said it 6 times. It was on the slide and it's in your catalog. Like I don't know how else to do that.
That's why we're developing it here right now, man. In real time, we're developing the idea.
There you go. Yeah. Keep it simple. Drinking, not people are half paying attention. But by the way, that's fine. That's fine that people are drinking, half paying attention. Let them have a good time, and we're not trying to burden them with the responsibility of raising money. We're trying to be like, hey, we're coming together as a community to do something amazing for a great group of folks who can really use our help. And if you can help, we'd love to have your help. That's kind of how we approach it.
Love it. Yeah, we say too much is too much. It leads to paralysis by analysis. Yeah. Too much.
Or thinking too much. The second people don't understand immediately what you're doing, they're out. They sit on their hands.
You lost them.
Right?
You lost them. Absolutely. Great point, man. Great point. Couple questions. Last call for questions. Renee, thank you so much. Good to see you. Each year, Keith, it is getting hard to procure sponsorships for our gala, despite the venue being an in-kind sponsor donating the use of the space and more, which allows all the funds raised to go directly to the organization. That's awesome. What are current insights to secure sponsorships more effectively?
Yeah, that's a great question. I got to say, this spring in our consulting, I've heard that from perhaps a few more clients than we normally do. Okay. I mean, unfortunately, if I had a silver bullet for that question, I'd be having this conversation instead from my home office. I'd have this conversation from my private island that I own or something like that. But I mean, that's a very good question. Honestly, I think there's just no shortage of persistence. You just gotta. This isn't what anybody wants to hear. You just got to try it. You just got to make more phone calls, keep trying, keep hammering more. I don't have a magic bullet for that, because you're right. It is competitive. And in some areas, there's still plenty of funding. In some areas, funding is drying up. Again, I would never get political or anything, but I think there's some certain things in the climate that make a lot of organizations are really having, the funding that they could have counted on in the past is not coming in. Right. Maybe outside of fundraising, outside of their fundraising, outside of their event, other sources of fundraising, maybe grants or things like that used to come in aren't coming in. So that puts the burden on, unfortunately, on executive directors and directors of development and advancement that they just, gotta keep pushing. I mean, unfortunately, I don't have a great solution for that. And you're still, you're competing even more against other organizations. It sort of is what it is.
I love the idea of making more phone calls. I love what you said. Sandy, will you throw up the coaching link? Renee, grab some free time. You have Keith's email. You can continue the conversation with Keith as well. Sandy, if you don't mind popping that up again. Also, grab some free time with Jason from our team as well. If you like, you can learn from 2 experts. The time is free. Do it. Take advantage of it. I think that'd be awesome. And I appreciate the question. Liz has a question. I think it's our last one, man. What's the best way to get a matching gift donation and when to introduce that in the paddle race?
Yeah, that's a great point. So to get a matching gift donation, again, you're making the same phone calls, whether you're asking someone for a pre-committed money or for a match, it's sort of the same type of ask, right? We're hoping you're an honorary donor. You're hoping you'll consider being an honorary donor, making a leadership gift, or being an honorary donor, making a match gift or a challenge gift. It's sort of the same ask. Now, if I could, here's the 2 things I say on that. If I could have one or the other, let's say you got a $10,000 chunk. Let's say you're a normal size event. You start your fund and need at $5,000 or $10,000. Again, we have some starting at higher, some starting at lower, right? But let's say you're most of our events probably start the fund need at $5,000 or $10,000. I would say if you could have an opening donation, say you don't have any other 10,000s, you can't find another 10. You say you want to start at 10,000. You think you have other folks in the room who have the capacity and might give you 10,000. Some groups are like, there's no way we're never going to get a $10,000 gift, and that's fine. Some groups are like, yeah, we have people who could do that and might do that. So we want an opening gift of 10,000 to sort of break the seal, right? To open up. In that scenario, I like if I had one $10,000 pre-commit, I would use it as an opening bid. I think that's more valuable than a match. Let's say you've got three $10,000 gifts you know about. Well, then maybe you use two of them as an opening bid. So who wants to come in at $10,000? Boom, boom. You have two of them to start out, which is a really strong start. But then maybe use a third one as a match. And maybe, what we do is we work to make a long story short, we work with the organization, look at what you did last year, specifically how many donations you had at each level, and figure out when to deploy that match. You wouldn't want to deploy a $10,000 match if you're starting at 10,000 because one person who was going to give you money anyway, boom, and your match is used up, right? So we might look at it and say, hey, last year we had 7 $1,000 donations, and this year we want to bump that up to 10, so let's donate 1,000. More likely, let's donate it maybe at the 250 level. 250 would be what? 6 times, that'd be what? 4 times 10, that'd be 40. $10,000 would be 40 donations at the $250 level. Mm-hmm. Maybe last year we had 30 donations at 250. This we want to bump some more hundreds up to the 250 level. So maybe we deploy it later at the 250 level, or maybe we deploy it at the 500 level to try to get 20 donations at the $500 level. We'll look at kind of where you've been in the past, and we can do that strategically. But your thinking is absolutely right. You don't necessarily want to deploy the funding at the top level. We want to deploy that later down the chain when it's actually going to make a difference.
To get more money. Yeah. For access. Love it. Love the question, Liz. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone so much for the questions. Hey man, we're out of time. We could keep going. I got another hour in me. How about you, man? If you gave me a bathroom break and a cup of coffee, I'm in for another hour.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I'm an auctioneer and I talk too fast and too much by trade. So there you go.
Well, hey, brother, this is your invite to come back. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Sandy sent me a winner. Here we go. Michelle Elkins from the Kansas State University Alumni Association. Michelle, thanks so much. You totally rock. Appreciate you coming. You won $1,000 in HGA bucks that you can use at your next event, and you got a free coaching session. They're all free, by the way, so sign up for one with Jason Ledlow. Please do so. All right. Good to see you, Sarah. Thank you so much. Melinda, thanks so much for sharing your LinkedIn profile. Everybody, really, really appreciate you all. Thanks so much for coming. We're starting a really, really cool timeline of your event, run a show, fundraising, run a show, all the above series next Thursday. So come join us. We'll have a couple special guests. Those details will come to you via email. Keith, can't thank you enough for taking the time. You totally rock, man. Do us a favor, everybody. Reach out to Keith on LinkedIn. Thank him for us. It would mean the world. Send him an email. Continue this conversation. Thank you so much. Thanks for the kind words. Appreciate you, Sarah. Appreciate you, Jackie. Appreciate you, Mr. West. Good morning, Mr. West. And we'll talk to you all very, very soon. Keith, you're the man. Appreciate you taking that much time.
Fantastic. Thanks, Trevor. My pleasure. Glad to be here.
All right, we'll do it again.